Welcome back to Noir Alley, coming to you from Bar 355 in Oakland, California, where tonight I have the distinct honor of being visited by my pal, the legendary cinematographer and director, Ernest Dickerson. Ernest, welcome to Noir Alley.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This is great. I love this.
We were actually just going to get together in Oakland and have a good time, but it just coincided with my shooting the show. So I said, come out and join me. And I gave you a list of films that you could present with me.
Yeah.
Why did you pick Woman on the Run?
There's a story behind this one. I think all of us have grown up with images that we've never been able to forget. I must have been about 5 or 6 or 7, definitely before 9 years old. Because I remember seeing this on my godmother's old black and white television set. And the 2 images that I remember, the one was 2 guys fighting, where one guy was pushing another guy's head onto the tracks of a roller coaster. There was that one, and then there was another one of a seemingly headless body floating in the water.
You remember seeing it, but you couldn't remember what the film was.
I didn't know what the film was. I don't think I ever saw the title. I don't even think I watched the movie when I was a kid. I think it was on my godmother's television set, and those 2 images just stayed with me.
The question I get asked more than anything else is, what is film noir? But then people contact me and say, there was this movie I saw when I was a kid, and all I remember are these few images.
Yeah.
Can you tell me what the film is? So I got to tell you, Ernest, this does my heart good to know that I've relieved you of this burden of doubt, wondering what that film is.
Thank you, but also, it's such a good movie.
Yes, it is.
I think you called it the greatest film noir that nobody's ever seen. This is a woman's voyage of discovery. Her husband witnesses a murder, and he goes on the run, and she needs to find him. At first, she doesn't care. She could care less about him. And the more she finds out about him, she starts to really fall in love with him again. And it's a great story.
I always call it a love story in reverse.
Yeah.
Because it starts and they've fallen out of love.
Yeah.
And she's so hard-boiled and cynical. She's a great noir character. This is Eleanor, played by Ann Sheridan. But it is so intriguing because it plays like a detective story, because she ends up having to go and encounter all these different people who may know where her husband is. So not only is this movie a great noir thriller, and it's kind of a detective story, but as you've pointed out, it really is
a great love story.
A love story.
Yeah.
A couple of things about this movie that really intrigued me is that Alan Campbell, one of the screenwriters of this film, was married to Dorothy Parker. And they were together in Hollywood. The whole time that she was writing in Hollywood, he was like Mr. Parker. But he was hired to write this screenplay, and I honestly think that that relationship between the husband and wife was very personal to him. And he was kind of writing the story of his relationship with Dorothy Parker. And it's really intriguing to know that after this movie came out, they reunited.
Yeah,
They had divorced, and then they got back together again.
It's like film noir as marriage counselor.
It's kind of amazing, you know?
Yeah. It's amazing that Ann Sheridan actually produced the film. It was done independently, and it was released to Universal International, which is probably one of the reasons that it disappeared, because it wasn't financed by Universal. They just released it. So they could probably care less about the movie. And the director, Norman Foster, he's a Wells protege. Some parts of it, started reminding me of The Lady from Shanghai.
And not just because, like Lady from Shanghai, it's filmed in San Francisco, on location, mid-20th century, and as a native San Franciscan, I can tell you that this film just is so steeped in San Francisco. The geography and the flavor of the city really comes through in this movie. It really gets that San Francisco was kind of a hard-scrabble, blue-collar, working-class seaport town, which really comes through in this movie. That San Francisco doesn't really exist anymore.
And then the Chinatown scene were really great. And photographed by Hal Moore, who was like one of the great MGM cameramen from back in the old days.
Hal Moore was a native San Franciscan and was like one of the great early cameramen. I mean, he was a guy who was building his own cameras when he was a teenager and like knew everything about cinematography from the very beginning. And I think that he was very inspired when he was making this movie, because it was like a testimony to his
to his city.
hometown,
Yeah.
right? I mean, there are parts of it that it kind of becomes like a travel log when they're walking around town. And I do have to give a big shout out in this to Dennis O'Keefe, who plays the male lead, and he is fantastic. Because Dennis O'Keefe was like a lightweight, like a song and dance guy and a kind of a comedian.
That's what I always figured.
But when he got into making noir with T-Men and Raw Deal, he had a whole different vibe going on. But I was really pleasantly surprised to learn that he and Ann Sheridan improvised a lot of their
the
dialogue.
yeah. And also the guy that played the police detective.
Yeah.
Because I think he was a playwright, wasn't he?
He became a playwright. Yeah, Robert Keith. He is tremendous in this film. So I'm so glad that you picked this film, to be honest.
I just loved your book because it just turned me on to so many films and just gave me so many titles to explore.
Well, maybe there are folks out there tonight that are like seeing this for the first time and it'll conjure up the memories that they had in childhood of seeing this movie.
Oh, you should definitely do that.
I have to say, for the longest time, there was no way you could see this film.
Yeah.
Right? It
Yeah.
disappeared. It was not on TV or anything. So
Yeah,
we'll talk about that later because I managed to rescue this film twice.
Very interesting story.
Yeah. But we'll save that for the outro because you're going to be here for the duration. So right now, we're going to let you watch this fantastic film from 1950. Here are Dennis O'Keefe and Ann Sheridan and Robert Keith starring in Woman on the Run.
You'll love it.